Veteran's incredible medals mocked as fake, then a general exposed the surprising truth in minutes. Jack Thompson stood behind his cluttered workbench, the smell of motor oil and sweat filling the small mechanic shop he called home. He could hear the whispers across the street, scoffing comments carried on the breeze. It had only taken a few years for the town he had fought to protect to turn on him, a broken soldier trying to find solace among rusted tools and old engines. The medals that glittered faintly against his chest, once symbols of bravery, were now questioned as cheap trinkets, meant to elicit pity. Each day felt heavier, the shame weighing him down like the rucksacks he carried in combat. He was a mechanic now, fixing broken-down cars for the same folks whose praises he had once basked in. But the lines between respect and ridicule blurred painfully with each patronizing glance from locals, particularly Eric Grayson, his once close friend turned bitter rival, now embellishing a political career founded on casting doubt over Jack's character. Jack's teenage daughter, Lily, had been digging into her father's past lately, excited for her upcoming history competition. She had pored over old documents, trying to make sense of the medals she saw her father wear. Yet, the deeper she delved, the more frustrated she became. The judges would cast skeptical glances when she proudly recounted her father's heroics, leaving her feeling helpless. Unable to bear the thought of her father's honor being questioned, she had confronted Jack multiple times, her voice laced with fierce determination. "Dad, I know the truth. I just want them to see who you really are." Every time she spoke, an internal war raged within him. He wanted nothing more than to share the stories that formed him, but the memories felt jagged, remnants of dark nights filled with terror and grief. The ghosts of his fallen comrades haunted him, and to relive those moments meant confronting the fear he so desperately wanted to shield Lily from. One chilly evening, the tension at town hall crackled like static electricity. Jack sat in the back, surrounded by familiar faces topped with brows furrowed in discontent. Grayson's voice rose above all, mocking Jack's service in front of the townsfolk. Jack could feel his heart racing, pulse in overdrive. Could he speak up? The need to defend himself gnawed at him, but self-doubt strangled his courage like a chokehold from an enemy he could not see. Then, he caught a glimpse of Lily. Her determination transformed into steely resolve, something fierce flickering in her eyes. That look, one of unwavering belief, pulled at the protective instinct buried deep within him. In that moment, they forged an unspoken plan. Inviting a retired general, a brother-in-arms, to testify about the truth behind Jack's medals would throw coal on the fire of truth that had long been smoldering. Jack's fingers trembled as he brushed his medals one last time, memories flooding him, his chest wet with remorse instead of pride. He could almost hear the silence of the dead comrades he left behind, whispering their stories into the void that clawed at his memories. Before they could finalize everything, the doorbell rang as thunder rumbled in the distance. Jack turned, peering through the rain-soaked window. He thought he saw the unmistakable figure of the general standing out on the porch. As Jack prepared for this critical meeting, an urgent interior tension gripped him. Would this be the moment he finally found the validation he yearned for? Or would the sirens of doubt, now echoing louder than before, drown out everything? Just as Jack opened the door to step out, a distant wail of sirens reverberated through the streets of Brooksville, sending a cold shiver down his spine. He stood rooted to the spot, heart racing. The stakes had just been raised, and Jack knew that whatever would be unveiled this rainy afternoon could unravel his entire world. Jack stepped outside, the rain drenching him almost instantly. The general's presence was imposing, a silhouette of resolve framed by the gloom of the stormy afternoon. Major William Adams, a figure Jack adored and feared in equal measure, approached him with an air of purpose. They had fought side by side, but today their bond felt strained under the weight of public scrutiny. "Jack," Adams said, his voice steady despite the downpour, "it's time to set the record straight." Jack's throat tightened. It was always easier standing shoulder to shoulder against a common enemy than facing the tempest of public opinion. He felt as though he was teetering on the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss below. "Are you sure you want to do this?" They'll tear you apart. Adams offered a faint smile, laced with the hard-earned wisdom of a seasoned soldier. It's not about them. It's about honor. Yours and those who fought alongside you. The general glanced toward the town hall where the meeting was still unfolding. They need to hear the truth. The purposefulness of Adams's words ignited a flicker deep within Jack. He had all but buried the essence of who he was beneath layers of shame, but now, the figure before him was a mirror reflecting the courage he once wielded like a shield. Jack stood straighter. Then let us go in there. Each step they took toward the hall felt monumental, as if the ground beneath them was laden with graves. Jack's thoughts raced, but he couldn't shake a nagging doubt that clung to him like the rain-soaked clothes adhering to his skin. What if he failed? What if the truth wouldn't set him free, but deepen the scorn? When they entered, the room buzzed with a mix of tension and anticipation. Townsfolk turned their heads, eyes filled with judgment, and Grayson's scoffing laughter pierced through the air like arrows. Jack caught sight of Lily sitting quietly, her chin tilted defiantly upward, her own resolve crystallizing in shared breaths. This was not just his fight, it was theirs. As the meeting unfolded, Grayson took to the podium, his voice dripping with sarcasm. And here we have the war hero in the flesh, alongside his so-called champion. He gestured toward Adams, a mocking grin plastered across his face. Jack felt a fresh wave of anxiety crash over him, but it was different now, stirring rather than drowning him. He had borne witness to atrocities, yet standing here, it was the thought of his daughter fighting for him that created a simmering anger beneath his stoicism. Enough, he said loudly, surprising even himself. You want to know the truth? Let us give it to them, General. Adams nodded, stepping forward with the authority that came from years of service and sacrifice. What matters is not just what Jack Thompson achieved under fire, but how each medal earned is a testament to the men and women who didn't come back. It's not just about recognition, it's about honoring those who lost their lives. For the first time, Jack felt his pulse synchronize with the rhythm of his surroundings. He addressed the crowd, the urgency in his voice cracking through the tension. Every moment I wore these medals, I carried the weight of their bravery on my shoulders. Today, I stand before you not just to defend myself, but to remind you all of the cost of freedom. The room fell silent, the collective breath of the audience shifting with uncertainty. Jack could feel the impact of his words refracting off the walls, seeking solid ground. But then, Eric Grayson's derisive chuckle broke through again. And you expect us to just accept your sob story? What proof do you have? The challenge hung in the air like thick fog, while Jack's heart raced. Every instinct in him warned against the very shadows that sought to swallow him whole. But Lily's fierce gaze steadied him, and the flickering determination shifted to conviction. I'll bring the proof, he declared, each word weighted with intention. This storm may not blow ever so gently, but it's time for the truth to be set free. As the sirens continued their mournful wail in the distance, Jack felt the tide turning within him. He had ignited something more than a battle for his reputation, it was a resurrection of his spirit. Suddenly, amidst the chaos of the storm overhead, a loud crash echoed from outside, gaining the attention of everyone in the hall. Jack's stomach knotted as curiosity shifted into concern. Was the storm now threatening lives? And what would that mean for everything he was fighting for? The crash echoed again, jolting Jack from the cocoon of his thoughts. It was as if the storm was rebelling against the injustices pinned on him and his service, an ominous drumroll heralding impending chaos. Townsfolk shifted in their seats, eyes darting to the entrance, uncertainty etched into their faces. Adams turned to Jack, brow furrowed. Stay focused. They'll try to distract you. He's right, Jack whispered, clenching his fists. In that moment, he understood that the battle wasn't just about clearing his name, it was a fight to reclaim the integrity of every soldier who had stood beside him. As the murmurs escalated, Jack caught Grayson smirking, a predator ready to pounce on any signs of weakness. The wavering faith of others felt like a blade against his resolve, but he couldn't afford hesitation. I need to prepare my proof, he thought, the adrenaline coursing through his veins transforming doubt into strategy. Decisions tore at his mind, skimming the surface of his thoughts like waves against a boat. He had medical records, commendations, the testimony of countless comrades, each piece a shield against Grayson's assault. But presenting those documents in a town so quick to judge felt daunting. Jack turned back to the crowd, quickly assessing their expressions. They were conditioned to believe the narratives painted for them by folks like Grayson. They wanted heroes, but they were fed deception instead. "What are you waiting for?" Grayson shouted, his voice an abrasive itch against the back of Jack's mind. "Do you need a help from a cavalry to back that up?" With renewed anger boiling beneath the surface, Jack cleared his throat. "Grayson doesn't know the true cost of service. He's too busy spinning tales in the safety of this room. Because here, I fight not just for myself, but for those who sacrificed everything." His voice rang with authenticity, unwavering despite the pressure mounting around him. A crack of thunder rumbled overhead, seemingly in response to his words. Jack seized the moment. "You want proof? I'll bring it before you, but understand this: it's not just paper. It's blood, sweat, and lives. Ask yourself if you're willing to face the reality of what we endured." There was a moment of stillness, tension hanging like charged particles in the air. Jack could see the wavering in some eyes, doubt creeping in amidst the echo of true sacrifice. "And if you want to talk proof," continued Grayson, stepping closer, "let's see what excuses you can make that Haven tea already fallen flat." Rising to the bait was tempting, but Jack stowed the instinct that begged him to retaliate. Instead, he focused inward, navigating his spiraling thoughts. He needed to outmove Grayson without engaging in a duel of insults. "Would you all prefer a facade, or do you want to hear the raw truth of sacrifice?" He addressed the audience, his voice powerful yet calm. "I will gather my proof, but I ask for a moment of patience. Just a moment to reflect on what real courage looks like." Jack turned to Adams, who offered a quick nod of affirmation. He could feel a shift. Maybe it was the accumulated weight of collective uncertainty, or perhaps the storm had stirred something deeper. A second, louder crash rattled the windows, a sound of destruction that pricked at his conscience. It was not just the real storm outside but the emotional tempest brewing within. What was the cost of this onslaught? And would he emerge as the man he once was, or would he be forever tethered to the accusations of cowardice? A pause filled the hall, silence drinking in tension. But what he didn't know about himself, Jack thought, fighting against the rush of impending confrontation. What if I could turn this tide, find something within me that had been lost? He glanced at Lily, her face illuminated with anticipation and anxiety. Perhaps the key to his redemption lay not just in proving his worth but in revealing the truth of himself. He hesitated there, an internal struggle flooding his senses. Just then, a lone figure emerged from the back of the crowd, clutching an envelope. His heart raced. Was this the proof he sought? Or a twist in an already complex tale? The air thickened, and Jack's focus sharpened. He felt something profound shift within him, a pivotal moment on the horizon. Would this reveal turn the tide, or would it send everything spiraling into the chaos of doubt once again? Jack's heart thundered in his chest as he watched the figure advance, inching closer with each deliberate step. The envelope crumpled and the figure's grip caught the flickering light. It seemed to mock everything Jack had fought for. Was this about to be his salvation or his undoing? "Who are you?" he called out, his voice cutting through the tension, a demanding anchor in the stormy sea of anxiety that threatened to consume him. The figure paused, revealing a familiar face: Harrison, a fellow comrade from the unit he had thought would remain a loyal ally. But there was an uncertainty in Harrison's eyes, a flicker of doubt that Jack had not anticipated. "Harrison," Jack began, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "What brings you here?" Harrison took a steadying breath. "I found this," he said, producing the envelope. You need to see it. It may help. Tentatively, Jack extended his hand, accepting the envelope. The paper felt weighty, heavy with potential. Jack could see the crowd leaning forward, curiosity igniting their attention, but he felt lost in an ocean of emotions swirling within: fear, hope, anticipation. He tore open the envelope, his fingers trembling. Inside lay not only documents but also photographs showing past missions, tangible evidence of camaraderie, struggles, and service. The images captured moments that spoke louder than any words he could muster. Memories of survival, bravery, and sacrifice flooded back with vivid clarity. "Jack, you're a hero," Harrison said quietly, sensing the shift in momentum. "People need to know the truth about what you've done." For a fleeting moment, Jack's confidence surged. Revealing these images could reshape the narrative. But then doubt crept back in, just like it had before. Would the townsfolk accept this evidence? Or would they cling to the narratives that Grayson had peddled? A palpable silence accompanied Jack's contemplation. The photographs reflected more than his service, they mirrored an identity he feared was slipping away. Every act of valor he once held dear now felt like a weight pressing down on his shoulders. "You don't need to prove yourself to them," Harrison added, voice steady. "You fought. You survived. You're still fighting for what's right. It's not about glory, it's about integrity." Jack's pulse quickened, the fire igniting inside him once more. Integrity. That was what he ultimately sought, not recognition, but a chance to reclaim who he was and what he stood for. "This isn't just about my past. It's about how we define courage," Jack considered aloud. "Not just for me, but for all of us who bore the weight of that call." He turned to face the crowd. "I will show you these moments not for applause but to reveal the truth of our shared struggle. I'll uncover the real courage behind the uniforms, the rawness of those experiences that Grayson seeks to undermine." As Jack spoke, he recognized the power of his own voice. The storm raging outside thrummed in rhythm with his heartbeat, invigorating his purpose. He could feel a transformation brewing inside him. It wasn't mere survival anymore, it was a crucial act of defiance. But Grayson wasn't done. "You think this will change anything?" he shouted, trying to reinstate the skepticism that had clouded Jack's resolve. "Don't mistake nostalgia for proof." Jack's gaze hardened. "It won't change the past, but it can reshape the present. This doesn't end here, Grayson. You've underestimated not just me, but every soldier who stood to defend our country and freedom." The momentum in the room shifted, a rising undercurrent of belief tinged with skepticism. Jack sensed fear and anger amalgamating in the people's hearts, but there was also something new: curiosity, a spark of interest in the raw truth. But would it be enough? As he looked into Harrison's eyes, Jack understood he had taken a pivotal step toward reclamation but still stood at the precipice of something greater. The confrontation with Grayson would soon come to a head. His breath caught as he recognized that revealing these truths wouldn't just test the crowd's faith, it would demand every single thread of courage he possessed. The envelope slid from his fingers, spilling its contents onto the floor. This time though, he wasn't afraid. The moment had arrived to face not just the accuser but the larger realization of what he had been made to forget about himself. Would he finally reclaim his narrative, or would doubt tether him once more? As the photographs fell, Jack knew now that presenting them was just the beginning of a battle he had long needed to confront. Yet, the flickering light of revelation within him ignited a deeper question: what other parts of himself lay buried, and would unveiling them change the game as he hoped? The photographs lay scattered like fallen leaves, each a fragment of Jack's forgotten identity. As he bent to gather them, the crowd stirred, their restless energy reaching a boiling point. Somewhere between fear and anticipation, Jack sensed a shift, a collective inhale that hinted at unspoken questions he was both terrified and exhilarated to address. Harrison's presence anchored him, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this moment of reckoning. Jack's heart raced, not with the familiar thrum of anxiety, but with the pulsing urgency of adrenaline. Could he dismantle the shadows of doubt that Grayson had cast, one story at a time? "Listen," Jack started, voice steady despite the clamor around him. "These pictures symbolize more than just memories, they represent a narrative of courage, sacrifice, and the truth of what many men and women faced. It's time to shift the conversation." His words, when spoken aloud, carried weight he hadn't anticipated. Hands grasped tighter at the edges of clothing, eyes narrowed in curiosity or skepticism. Jack felt them leaning in, fighting to shed their preconceived notions. He recalled his training, how moments of high tension often paved the way for profound change. As he began to describe the stories behind each photograph, faces of comrades lost, triumphant missions, and the bonds forged in the flames of adversity, he could see comprehension dawning across the crowd. They were beginning to perceive the long-lost valor hidden beneath layers of doubt and fear. But beneath his resolve lay an inner turmoil he couldn't ignore. Grayson's relentless skepticism still echoed in his mind, gnawing at the fragile confidence he was attempting to construct. "What if they don't believe me?" he pondered fleetingly, yet pushed the thought aside. It was time for revelation. Each medal you see, each mark of honor, reflects not just personal achievement. They bear witness to the struggles we weathered as a unit. Our stories cannot be undone or rewritten by rumors, he declared, anger lacing his voice. This matter is about standing up against falsehoods promoted by those who wish to tarnish that legacy for their gain. Jack paused, searching faces filled with tension as he continued, "None of us are infallible. We've all seen darkness, and we will always struggle with our demons. But in this community, it's vital that we choose authenticity over ignorance." As he spoke, he felt a stirring, a budding recognition of his own worth and the strength it commanded. He envisioned Grayson's contempt and realized that this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a crusade for clarity. Jack had to ignite the same flame within each listener that was alight in his own heart. In unexpected moments of silence between his thoughts, Jack detected a wave begin to crest, the empathy rising from their shared experience, their common bond as witnesses to sacrifice. As they exchanged glances, he could sense a transformation brewing, a shift from passive observers to willing participants in the narrative he was reconstructing. "If we do not reclaim our voices," he stated with newfound intensity, "we allow others to speak for us, to redefine our truths in ways that serve their intentions. I am here to ensure that the legacy of our service is remembered for what it truly is." The air rasped with uncertainty, but within the chaos, he forged a thread of unity. He felt the warmth of camaraderie, igniting a collective recognition that now existed between them. At that moment, Jack understood that his own redemption hinged on their willingness to confront doubt together. But a sudden realization hit him, revealing the truth wouldn't just risk his reputation with Grayson, it could devastate the alliances forged in silence. In a fraught moment of clarity, Jack was confronted by the dilemma of choosing visibility over safety. Could he endure the backlash should this courage turn into divisiveness? As the truth hung heavy in the air, the urgency of action surged within him. "I will continue to tell our story, the raw, unfiltered truth that binds us together. Grayson can attempt to dismantle our character, but he cannot erase our narrative." With eyes locked on his audience, Jack's heart hammered with both doubt and determination. He stood on the precipice of change, aware that while rebirth could lead to validation, it might also unearth alliances forged in misunderstanding. The question lingered, casting a long shadow: what would it cost to confront this looming confrontation, and would he lose himself or find a stronger identity amidst the tumult? The pivotal battle against Grayson loomed nearer, threatening an explosion of truths that could shatter the very foundations of his existence. But he had begun the fight. There was no turning back now. The murmurs of the onlookers crescendoed, their eyes glued to Jack, who could feel the weight of each gaze pressing heavily on his shoulders. He thought of how he'd approached battles before, strategically, with calculated steps. But this was different. This conflict was fought not just against an enemy, but against a force that sought to redefine every facet of who he had become. Which spoke louder, his memories, profoundly etched into his identity, or the whispers of Grayson's insidious allegations. Jack fought against the knot in his gut, forcing himself to become a vessel for those shared lives. Driven by an unwavering determination, he resolved to continue recounting their narrative, his voice a defiance against the tide of misinformation. Window after window into his past opened, flooding him with vivid snapshots, barely their gestures, quiet resilience, shared laughter in the face of adversity. Each photograph wasn't merely a reflection of a history but a signal, a compass leading him further into authenticity. He seized this moment, carefully illustrating how these impressions shaped not just veterans, but the communities they returned to. "No one can tell our story but us," he affirmed amid newfound resolve, the fervor echoing through his pores. He noticed the transformation in faces shifting from doubt to reluctant acceptance. Murmurs began to shape into affirmations, a powerful energy sparked like dry leaves igniting in an unexpected wildfire. Perhaps he could cultivate understanding amidst the chaos. Harrison's reassuring presence remained by his side, mirroring the changing tides within the crowd. Jack centered himself, almost as if the collective uncertainty was transforming into a palpable current, pushing him forward. It might not be easy, but he was ready to dismantle Grayson's facade with sheer audacity and believable truths. Yet, an instinct told him that sharing their stories would not come without risk. Would they perceive this as a betrayal instead of shedding a light on an infiltrating darkness? Every second felt like a battle of its own, igniting the potential for camaraderie while simultaneously threatening fragile bonds. They had all woven their lives into these shared experiences, innermost relationships formed under shared weight, now laid bare before an audience teetering on the edge of acceptance. "Think of the moments that shaped you," he urged, his voice dropping to a hypnotic cadence. "That one glimpse of bravery, that flash of courage that sparked the decision for service in the first place. Remember how fear became the backdrop against which hope flourished. Understand the power that resides in your story." Jack glanced around, meeting numerous expectant eyes. Was this transformation real, or just an illusion conjured by his impassioned speech? As he continued, he felt threads of understanding weaving together, beginnings of individual narratives aligning into a larger tapestry, a collective understanding of vulnerability, resistance, and preservation of truth, a raw sentiment aching for recognition. But he still sensed the heaviness of Grayson's shadows lurking behind every affirmation shared, every ounce of acceptance gleamed. The truth, much like a two-edged sword, could both illuminate and sever. Jack was painfully aware of what could unravel, and the potential to devastate not only his own reality, but to undermine the stories of those who had fought so hard. "Together, we can rewrite the narrative," he urged, synthesizing the charged atmosphere enveloping him. He stepped closer, allowing the gravity of his invitation to linger. "But first, we must confront the fears that bind us. Only then will we find strength amid uncertainties, reclaiming our version of history before others stitch it into an unsightly quilt of lies." Just as the crowd began to respond, Jack, thrumming with adrenaline, felt the unmistakable presence of Grayson just beyond the perimeter, tension snapping in the air like the hairs on the nape of his neck. The time had come to face this nemesis head-on, an unexpected confrontation looming, and Jack's pulse quickened as he strained beneath the weight of decisions yet unmade. How would he navigate this depth, unraveling both truth and consequence entwined in a single moment? The forthcoming struggle rattled through him, a vital test of who he was meant to become. The rocks beneath the surface stirred, the battle for his voice had only just begun. Would he emerge stronger, or would this journey dissolve into the darkness he had fought so adamantly against? The questions gnawed at him, urging forward into the storm awaiting him ahead. The air buzzed with tension, thick and palpable, as Jack's eyes locked onto Grayson's steely gaze. The weight of unspoken words hovered between them, a battlefield forged from years of rivalry and personal vendetta. Every instinct urged Jack to shrink back, but he couldn't. He wouldn't. This was a juncture so pivotal that backing down would not only feel like a personal failure, but a disservice to every voice hanging on his words. Grayson stepped forward, the remnants of doubt in the crowd warping into steel-faced scrutiny. You think you can dismantle what I've built, Jack? His voice sliced through the thick atmosphere, dripping disdain. The manipulation embodied in Grayson's presence felt like a barrage of cannon fire, but instead of faltering, Jack drew from the well of fortitude burgeoning in his chest. What you've built is a house of cards, Grayson, Jack responded, every word deliberate. The crowd leaned in, interest piqued. Jack propelled himself forward, intent on using this moment to merge his narrative with the truth. You've capitalized on fear and misinformation. We are not your pawns, we are the architects of our own destinies. Jack could sense Harrison's presence, anchoring him as he felt the tremors of shared memories surge within. The encounters that had shaped him, each act of bravery captured in fleeting memories, sprung to life. He harnessed this power, understanding now that authenticity was forged through vulnerability. With each heartbeat resonating, Jack focused on projecting a calm that belied the storm inside. What do you really know about sacrifice? He challenged Grayson, the words sharper than any blade. You've never faced the enemy in the trenches. Our lives are not just statistics for your agenda. The crowd shifted, whispers mixing with a rising tide of curiosity. Each shared moment of the past, every laugh and tear of service, morphed into a weapon in his hands. Jack navigated his memories like a skilled tactician, weaving together a narrative so resolute that he felt its momentum growing, pushing against Grayson's dismissive facade. I am the son of a veteran, a legacy etched in scars and triumph, Jack continued, eyes narrowing. And behind each soldier stands a community ravaged by the fallout of war. There was a drumbeat of resolve swelling in him, an understanding that he could reshape the narrative, but he had to strip it of lies first. The people surrounding them seemed to shift ever so slightly, as if drawn into the gravity of the truth that Jack flung like thunder against Grayson's falsehoods. This was no longer merely about him, it was about the legacy shared, the lives intertwined by sacrifice. He pleaded for their acknowledgement, their validation. Honor is not owned by a title, but earned through shared struggle and the truth of our experiences. I want them to know the real stories are stories. The intensity of Jack's voice seemed to electrify the crowd, breathing energy into the hesitant uncertainty that had hung in the air moments before. Simultaneously, Grayson bore down, his resolve unraveling under the weight of Jack's conviction. You really believe they'll side with you? He scoffed. But there was a tremor in Grayson's voice, now a flicker of apprehension. Jack took a breath, realizing this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. The moment crystallized into a singular truth: he was no longer the soldier seeking approval, he was the commander of his narrative. The tension hung thick, daring the crowd to take one side or the other. Would they rally behind Jack, or would they succumb to Grayson's machinations? Jack's heart raced as he scanned their faces, searching for the spark that could ignite the change he desperately sought. Behind Grayson's facade, Jack understood that fear thrived, but courage was a choice. Would he influence that choice today, or would he be left to grapple with the vestiges of Grayson's manipulation? The choice lingered thick in the air, electrifying and crucial. Only seconds separated him from clarity, an awakening of allied spirits bound together by truth in an environment fraught with conflict. Jack stood at the precipice, fully aware that this moment would shape everything that came next, afraid to breathe but instinctively drawn toward the answer waiting to unfurl. Would he harness this momentum and imprint the truth in their hearts, or would he fall victim to an adversary skilled in deception? The moment uncoiled around Jack like a tightly wound spring, ready to explode. Silence enveloped the crowd, a collective intake of breath that felt almost sacred. Jack could feel it, the weight of expectation combined with growing uncertainty. This was the moment his resolve would either fortify or shatter. Grayson's posture stiffened, a predator caught off guard, his confidence beginning to fracture. This was unfamiliar territory for him. He thrived on dominance and detachment, while Jack stood tall, vulnerable yet resolute. The dichotomy pressed down on them, showcasing two stark approaches to authority. Jack let the silence linger, allowing the implications of his words to penetrate deeper. Would they choose authenticity over manipulation? His mind raced through his own past choices, moments when fear had paralyzed him, suffocating his voice, and how he had vowed never to let that happen again. Each second was a battle cry. He took a step towards the edge of the crowd, fully aware that he was not just looking for validation from others, but reconciling something within himself, his sense of purpose, his identity formed in the backdrop of conflict. "This isn't just about me or you, Grayson," he pressed, feeling the pulse of connection with those in front of him. "It's about every man and woman who sacrificed their lives, their families, their futures for something greater than themselves. You twist their suffering into tools for your ambition. That ends now." Jack's voice rose, fueled by the raw emotion of a community yearning to be heard. The crowd seemed to awaken, their gaze flicking between Jack and Grayson, questioning everything they had been fed. Jack could see potential allies flicker into focus, the whispers of support budding like spring flowers through the cold soil of doubt. Oh, how he longed to gather those voices, to fashion strength from unity. Yet, he was aware that believability hinged on a solid foundation of truth. His truth. Grayson, now visibly rattled, attempted to recover his composure. "Do you not realize the heights I've reached? The connections I've made? You think they will listen to empty rhetoric?" Each word dripped with disdain, but Jack caught the edge of desperation lurking beneath. "Connections forged through deceit," Jack shot back, tightening his grip on his own narrative. "You are not a leader, you are a fraud." This was warfare, and Jack felt the adrenaline coursing, reshaping his identity, forcing him into a role he never fully embraced but always yearned for: an advocate, a warrior of truth. His heart thudded with each beat as the crowd began to murmur their agreement. Voices, once silent, started to rise, a chorus of dissent against the false narrative that had suffocated them. Jack closed his eyes for a brief moment, encapsulating the gravity of the shift taking place. A revolution sparked not within the battlefield, but deep within the hearts of those listening. Suddenly, he recognized something deep within himself, a hidden resolve. He hadn't just been fighting for validation, he'd been rallying for a collective identity, one that recognized strength in vulnerability and truth. Would Grayson's carefully built tower of lies crumble? The thrill of possibility surged through him as Jack raised his chin, prepared to stand as the voice of change. "I will ensure your words do not overshadow our sacrifices. We will reclaim our narrative." The proclamation felt like a birthright fulfilled. Now he had a purpose. Yet, even as the crowd began to surge towards him, Jack felt a haunting doubt creeping in. Would they be able to break free from the gravitational pull of Grayson's manipulations? Could he truly transform his passion into a lasting push for change? As Grayson stepped back, momentarily at a loss for words, Jack sensed that the coming confrontation held the potential for revealing not just who would emerge victorious, but what it meant to reclaim one's story in the face of adversity. The new journey ahead teetered on the edge of uncertainty, but Jack knew he had already begun to redefine his trajectory. What lies ahead in this ever-complicated dance of truth and deceit? Jack's resolve strengthened, yet a chilling realization struck him: the battle was only entirely just begun. Jack stood at the precipice of his newfound resolve, adrenaline coursing through him as he contemplated the shifting tides around him. The crowd, once dormant, was alive with murmurs, their support igniting a flicker of hope deep within him. He felt like a flame reborn, bright and fierce, but uncertainty still clung to the edges of his mind, like shadows lurking just outside the light. Grayson, now stepping back, was visibly rattled, the white-knuckled grip on his composure revealing the cracks in his facade. This was not merely a public debate, it was a fight for identity, for authenticity, and Jack's purpose was clearer than ever. But with each victory came the haunting specter of self-doubt. Would he be able to sustain the momentum? Could he truly lead the charge from mere words to actionable change? The murmurs of support swelled, and Jack felt the weight of those collective gazes on him, heavy with expectation. But was it admiration or mere curiosity? Each heartbeat echoed a reminder of his previous failures, of the times he had faltered, and the moments he let fear override his voice. Could he maneuver through the minefield of high-stakes confrontation without crashing into another pit of inadequacy? He clenched his fists at his sides, focusing his energy, forcing himself to stay present. This was more than a moment, it was the genesis of a movement. Jack took a deep breath, filtering out distractions. He had begun to understand that his greatest obstacles were often internal, mounting doubts fueled by insecurities that stemmed from his past. With renewed determination, he called out to the crowd, his voice steady this time. It's time to confront our reality. We must strive for accountability from ourselves and from those who wish to manipulate us for their gain. Change will not come from hollow promises or carefully tailored deceit. It comes from our willingness to stand firm in our truth. The words poured out, each sentence reinforced with conviction, echoing the raw energy whirling around him. He scanned the faces in the gathering crowd, watching as apprehension gave way to hope. Something flickered in their eyes that filled him with courage, the realization that perhaps they were all in this fight together. A collective heartbeat, his singular journey intertwining with their stories, sparking a flame of shared purpose. But, as the tide turned, he felt the pull of something unsettling. The undercurrent of Grayson's influence still loomed. Little by little, Jack understood that this was not only about claiming his narrative but dismantling the power structures that enabled the spread of deceit and manipulation. A sharp voice broke through his thoughts. "What makes you think you can lead?" It was a young woman from the crowd, eyes fierce, skepticism etched into her features. Her challenge hung in the air, a thin thread of doubt weaving its way through the fabric of support. Jack felt a rush of conflicting emotions, anger, fear, and a prick of vulnerability. He understood that a leader was not defined by their ability to garner applause but by their willingness to confront their own fragilities. "Because I am as flawed as you, and I will not shy away from acknowledging that. I will learn from every misstep. Together, we can embrace vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness." His heart raced, a slight tremor in his voice as he faced the crowd, inviting them to join him on this difficult road ahead. He recognized now that their journey would be replete with struggles, disagreements, and moments of profound doubt. But growth was about navigating these murky waters, not avoiding them altogether. As Jack finished speaking, the silence stretched, thick with anticipation. Suddenly, applause erupted, hesitant but growing stronger like a dam giving way, the momentum solidified into a wave of support. Jack's heart swelled. Perhaps he could truly become the leader he aspired to be. The moment was intoxicating, a potent mix of relief and exhilaration, but lurking alongside that was the cold realization that Grayson wouldn't surrender easily. He was still in the shadows, likely plotting his next move. Jack knew that the battle was about to escalate, and this time, it wouldn't only be about reclaiming a narrative, it would be about standing firm against a tidal wave of manipulation and deceit. What maneuver would Grayson employ next to undercut Jack's resolve? The thought pressed heavily on his mind, igniting the fire within him to prepare for the inevitable confrontation ahead. Jack stood resolutely in the town hall, surrounded by a crowd that had shifted from skepticism to tentative support. Thunder rumbled outside, reverberating through him as he clasped the photographs that represented not just his past, but the collective valor and sacrifice of his fellow soldiers. Behind the weight of that moment lay the understanding that his fight was not just about him, it was a battle for the dignity of those whose stories had remained buried beneath a facade of falsehoods. Confidence surged within him, ignited by the flicker of hope in the eyes of his daughter, Lily, and the gathered townsfolk. He felt the momentum building, the air crackled with the electricity of shared purpose. Jack realized how far he had come from the fractured man hiding behind his tools. Now, he was stepping boldly into the light, reclaiming not just his narrative but the identity he had long thought lost. "Grayson," Jack called out, his voice steady. "You've built your career on manipulation and misinformation, but today that stops. You've turned our stories into pawns for your political ambitions, but we are not your sacrifices. We are the architects of our own truths." The crowd began to cheer, igniting a powerful ripple that fueled Jack's urgency. He pressed on, the weight of his words punctuated with resolve. I refuse to allow even one more soldier to be belittled in the shadows. The truth waits no longer. I will bring my proof tomorrow first thing, and I will lay bare every moment I, alongside my brothers and sisters in arms, faced our fears to serve this country. To serve our community. The applause intensified, and Jack felt the rising tide of support cascade around him. Then, amid the swelling cheers, Grayson attempted a counterattack, his bravado crackling with indignation. And who do you think will believe your claims? Your medals? Your stories? They are nothing but relics of a tarnished past. Relics of honor, Jack snapped back, unwavering. Relics that should serve as reminders of sacrifice, not tools for your rhetoric. And I'll prove it to you, Grayson. I'll lay out the truth so starkly that it cannot be dismissed. With each sentence, Jack conjured courage from within. It wasn't merely for him to prove, it was for every soldier who had endured hardship, every family affected by the scars of service. The stakes had never felt higher, the clarity of purpose sharper. The mood in the room shifted, the ghosts of doubt began to dissipate. His audience, enraptured, swept away the cobwebs of uncertainty. Discarding the past stigma, they began to reclaim their connection to Jack not just as an individual, but as a symbol of resilience. Prepare yourselves, because those truths may not be comfortable, he warned, voice resonating with the intensity of a father fighting for his daughter's future, for his own redemption. Jack realized that this confrontation was shaping him into the leader he yearned to be. Lily beamed at him from the front row, her unwavering belief in his journey igniting a spark of joy amidst the residual chaos. "Dad, you've got this," she called out, her faith overwhelming his lingering doubts. The connection between them surged, lifting Jack ever higher within that whirlwind. And then he made a promise to everyone around him, the very foundation of his resolve. "I will show this town that we are more than just our pasts. Together, we will redefine what it means to be a community. It starts with honesty, understanding, and unwavering support." Cheers echoed through the hall, drowning out the remnants of Grayson's skepticism. Jack drew upon their collective energy until every fiber of his being felt alive, a unity forged from shared uncertainty, now transformed into a spectacular wave of strength. As the meeting progressed, Jack felt a landscape shifting, a renaissance reborn amidst the storm outside. Each photo he shared grew into a bridge, and piece by piece, he reclaimed the narrative that had been unjustly hijacked. By the end of the meeting, the thrill of empowerment enveloped him. He had faced the demons of doubt. Not only within himself but those lurking in guarded hearts around him. The light bulb of clarity clicked on, every interaction had fortified both his identity and that of others. They stood together united against deceit. Standing at the threshold of redemption, Jack looked around the room, eyes glistening with tears he wouldn't shed. He had emerged, transformed, a testimony woven with honor and dignity. "From this day forward," he concluded, voice resonating with conviction, "we embrace our pasts, honor our heroes, and declare that no one will dictate our stories but us." The crowd erupted into applause, a chorus of validation. Jack felt the strength bubbling up within him this time. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was a conveyor of truth, a vessel of change, and finally, he could breathe deep, unshackled from the burdens of shame. As he exited the hall, a sense of profound fulfillment washed over him. The chain of doubt that had once tethered him to obscurity had shattered. He was grounded in a newfound identity, no longer identified solely by his presence in the past, but buoyed by the authenticity he now carried forward. Realizing that the crux of his journey had always been about confronting shadows both internal and external, Jack felt accomplished. As he stepped into the rain-soaked street, he embraced the crisp air, a reminder that he could weather any storm ahead. Now, he could finally mean what he had said. It was indeed time to leave the past behind but honor it as he ventured boldly into the future. This victory was just a beginning. In his heart, Jack believed that with each step he took from here on, he was forging not only his pathway but lighting the way for others to reclaim their narratives too. And that, finally, became his definition of honor. Be part of this story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about how Jack's journey unfolds next. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the transformational power of truth. You don't want to miss being part of this movement.